Hi friends, this week we're looking at chapter 9 in my book, which is all about how God gets our attention when he wants us to bring his kingdom, or start a conversation with someone, or offer to pray for someone. And if you're anything like me, you will know what it feels like to be overwhelmed when you're out and about in the town centre. There are so many people and so many different needs, and it's just helpful to understand how God might begin to get your attention as to who he actually wants you to go and speak to. And I found that there's a couple of ways that God does this. I think sometimes he gets our attention because he wants us to then approach somebody, and there's different things that can go on. I think if you end up feeling compassion for someone, you suddenly spot someone and this compassion rises up in your heart, could be a good indicator that God wants you to go and have a conversation with them and see what's going on for them. Or another thing could be that you see someone in town and you clock them, and then later on the same day, maybe half an hour later or something, in a different part of town, you see them again. And that, again, is a way that God is trying to get your attention potentially to go and speak to the person, prophesy over them, because he's bringing them back to you a second time. Or another way could be that you see someone when you're out and about and they remind you of someone else. And that's a good telltale sign that God wants to do something, and maybe he wants you to encourage that person or prophesy over that person based on the person they remind you of. And so it's important to be aware of these ways that God speaks to you. The other category of ways that God's get your attention is that when he brings people actually to you. And I love these ways. So different examples would be someone just starts to speak to you out of the blue. And there's no reason for it, they just begin a conversation with you. Maybe they start telling you about a sickness that they're struggling with. It could be a really good indicator that God has brought that person to you because he wants to do something in their life. He wants you to pray for them. He wants to see breakthrough for them. Another example could be you're sitting at a table in a coffee shop and for no apparent reason someone comes and sits with you. Just, again, pay attention to that. It could be that God is just literally bringing someone to you because he wants to encounter them and reveal his love to them. Or maybe my favourite is what I call backed into a corner encounters, where you just find yourself backed into a corner where people begin to ask you about Jesus out of nowhere, or people even ask you, can you pray for me? I remember one guy on TSM with his mechanic at his garage. Ultimately the encounter ended up with the mechanic saying, will you pray for me? And the guy kind of got stuck. He wasn't intending to pray, but he did, and he actually saw the guy healed. And so pay attention as to how God's getting your attention. And then the key thing is then that we respond. And so maybe this week as you're out and about, be open to God getting your attention in these different ways, and then maybe take some courage, go and approach the person, start up a conversation and see what God opens up. And record the stories here. It'd be great to hear what God does.